Hello and welcome to the Real Men of Real Estate radio show. I'm your host, Patrick Franz, the Note Mentor. And when you tune into my show each month, you're going to learn how to build passive monthly cash flow and create true financial freedom by investing in mortgage notes. You'll learn how to collect cash flow from real estate without owning the real estate. I mean, who wants to deal with tenants and toilets, termites, and all of the other troubles that are associated with being a landlord? So listen, on my show, I plan every month to bring on amazing experts for you folks onto my show so that you can get a well-rounded view of note investing. And, you might possibly change your life. You could change your financial future and leave a better financial legacy. So financial intelligence is what I preach, but note investing is what I teach, right, folks? And so on today's show, I have an amazing guest lined up for you guys. His name's Bill Bymel, one of those guys where when you meet him in person, you get a good vibe. And he's been in the note investing space for quite some time now. He's brilliant. He's an expert. He's going to offer tons of nuggets about note investing, about the real estate market, all sorts of good stuff. So do not go anywhere. You're going to want to listen to this show today. But what is note investing, right? So everybody, if you're listening and you're saying, what is he talking about? What is a mortgage note or note investing? I like to compare it to being a landlord because most people that are listening, they understand that. And so if you wanted to be a landlord, you'd go and buy a physical piece of real estate. Let's just say a single family home. And you would buy that and you would put a renter in there and you would start collecting rent payments every month. And that would be your cash flow. And everybody knows who's been a landlord that it's not as easy as it may seem. There are headaches, there are expenses, there are phone calls, there are issues, there are bad tenants. There's all sorts of things you can deal with that sometimes will take away from your ROI, number one, but also maybe take away from a lot of your time. And time for us is very valuable. And so with note investing, we think of ourselves as taking the place of the bank. And as we know, banks don't act as landlords and banks don't flip houses. Banks own the mortgage and the promissory note. So banks actually get to collect a mortgage payment each month with interest without having the ties or the liabilities associated with the actual physical real estate. And so if you can imagine, folks, you go to a bank, a hedge fund, or a private seller out there that is carrying one of these promissory notes that's backed by a mortgage. It means that it's backed by a physical piece of real estate, and you're able to pick this up, put it into your portfolio, and immediately start collecting monthly cash flow. It's an amazing investment vehicle. In fact, in my 22 years now of investing, dealing with venture capital, stocks, startups, I got to tell you, folks, note investing is possibly the best investment vehicle I've ever seen. And that's why I'm into it. And that's why people like Bill Bymel are into it. And maybe folks like you want to learn about it. I'm going to do a little plug, Bill, but if you do want to learn about it, go to noteinvestoruniversity.com. noteinvestoruniversity.com. We have a full college curriculum teaching folks about notes, how to be a professional note investor and create these types of returns hassle-free. So get on to noteinvestor.com. But let me bring my guest in so that we can get somebody else besides me talking here, Bill. But Bill Bymel, amazing guy, has such a wealth of experience in this note investing space. Can't wait to hear from him. But again, I will remind you folks, I went to a note investing conference. I'm much newer to the space than Bill, and I'm just chit-chatting with folks and shaking hands. And I meet Bill at a note investing conference and had some chit chats with him and shook his hand and immediately got a vibe like, hey, this guy, Bill, he's a guy I could be pals with. He's a guy I could do business with. Right, Bill? So it was so fun to meet you. It was amazing to meet you in person, shake your hands. And I'm thankful for you to spend your time coming on my radio show today to bless this audience with some nuggets. But do me a favor. Since we just told people what notes are, can you help me expound upon that and why maybe buying notes versus buying real estate might be a good idea?
No, absolutely, Patrick. Thank you for having me on. And hopefully this next few minutes that we spend together will be fruitful for your audience as well. I had started as a real estate investor. I think the analogy you bring up of landlord is best associated with what the public would think of as real estate investing, buying a piece of property and investing and renting it out. But that comes with a whole slew of headaches, as you mentioned. And it obviously has tax benefits. I do not recommend against investing in real estate. I think it's a fantastic vehicle. And I got started off my career 20 years ago as a real estate investor. When the last market crash happened in 2008, a whole nother aspect of note investing really came to the forefront of the real estate economy. And that was when mortgages crashed, the mortgage and real estate market crashed 14 years ago. There was all of a sudden thousands of mortgages that were non-performing, that went into default and were upside down, where the banks actually owned paper worth more than the real estate underlying collateral. So that's the aspect of the note investing business that I got into, buying non-performing notes that I could buy at a discount to face value. And we buy performing as well. I think it's especially for an IRA or something that's, I have some performing loans, mortgages that I act as the bank in my self-directed IRA. I think it is a fantastic return, and you don't get the phone call about the toilets leaking or that the neighbors are too loud, or that you would get as being a landlord. And you have a servicer that's collecting your payments, so it's really a very passive return, very nice income on the performing side. On the non-performing side, our focus has been buying at a discount to the underlying real estate collateral, at a discount substantial to the debt that's owed. And that's a credit that we get from banks and other note investors for the fact that it's non-performing. And then we make our money by working something out with our borrowers, by getting to a resolution quicker than the bank would have. And we'll get into some of the details about that as we go on.
Yeah, and you're exactly right that you don't have the normal headaches associated with like being a landlord, right? You don't get those late phone calls or the broken toilet phone calls and those kinds of things. And you did mention, though, there are advantages in which why none of us who are in the space try to steer people away from real estate investing. It's not do both, right? Because the tax implications for profits made by note investments versus maybe owning a rental with depreciation and those things can be a lot different. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I'm not an accountant, so I'm not going to give tax advice. But the depreciation benefits you get with owning real estate certainly offset, what would be normal, ordinary income or interest income that might be taxed differently than, and so I recommend a portfolio that is diversified. And I think that you look at notes both from the perspective of a real estate market that is very hard to buy in right now without overpaying. You look at, purchasing a performing loan at 50 LTV or 60 loan to value that's, throwing off 5, 6, 7% is a very safe investment. And it's a great way to round out and add to your portfolio and be involved in real estate without paying what I think are overly inflated prices right now in the residential real estate market.
Yeah, we're certainly going to get into that here later on in this show. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But so I'm glad that we've sort of elaborated a little bit for the listeners on what notes are, right? A promissory note that's backed by a mortgage document that basically collateralizes the physical real estate if they don't pay, right?
Right.
Sort of like if you don't pay on your car note, the guy with the tow truck comes and he gets the car.
Yeah.
The bank will get your house, okay, if you don't pay them what you owe them. But so imagine we are the bank, folks. We're the bank. You get to step into the shoes of the bank. You're collecting these mortgage payments each month. The physical piece of real estate is acting as collateral for the promissory note. And like you said, not a lot of headaches, but there are some headaches involved and very minimal compared to the real estate associated headaches, right? You said it best. It's weird when people hear about note investing that no one has ever heard of any individual sending their mortgage payment to another individual. It sounds weird. So when people hear about note investing, they're like, wait, a person, an individual can own someone else's mortgage like a bank does? That sounds weird. So you're going to send your mortgage payment to Bill Bymel every month? And you say, no, that would be weird. So you hire a servicing company, sort of like a property manager, if you would, if you're relating to rental properties, but a servicing company. What do they do, Bill? A servicing company.
Yeah, the loan servicer is a licensed entity. There's only a handful of really major servicers out there, and then there's several dozen smaller servicers. But the loan servicers could be them a major bank. A lot of Bank of America has its own loan servicing department. Wells Fargo has its own loan servicing department, but they own so many loans that they actually have to subservice out to other servicers. So, you might, whatever you get your mortgage statement from, and the majority of these mortgage loans it's a $12 trillion residential mortgage market. And the majority of them, believe it or not, are owned by private equity, not banks. So the banks do obviously hold, and obviously the federal government backs a good portion of the mortgages out there. And then banks a smaller portion, and private investment in mortgages, mostly in the form of hedge funds, major, pension funds. But most mortgages are privately owned by an investor, and that investor never talks to the borrower. The servicer deals with everything.
Yeah. So folks, if you wanted to invest into a mortgage note and you owned a mortgage note in your portfolio and you were collecting cash flow each month from that borrower, the borrower would be sending their monthly payment to a servicer, not to you, not to your home address and your first name and last name, a servicing company. So it might be ABCD Inc. servicing company. And that's who your borrower is having communications with, sending their mortgage payment to each month. And that servicing company deposits the money into your bank account. It's quite a nice little thing, but we're going to get more back into this, folks, after this first commercial break. You're listening to the Real Men of Real Estate radio show here on KCAA Radio with your host, Patrick Franz, the Note Mentor. We're going to be right back with more from Bill Bymel. Don't go anywhere.